Hello everyone, hope you're well. I am a minute early. Reason being, I want to share. How do I share? It's not got an option to share. Right, let's try it this way. I want to share it onto my Facebook. What I'll do is I'm just going to go live on my Facebook for a couple of minutes, because I know there will be some people unaware. I've not got my second table with me, so I'm having to hold my phone and try and send people over that way. As many people as I can. Hello Janice. We done a test earlier on. Yeah, I just put a notification in the group, Willie, that I was coming on at 7:30. Hello Maria, we're on the book page. I just put a notification into the group about 7:30. So, we done a test with Jack earlier. We're able to do the split screen. There shouldn't be any technical issues at all. Time will tell, I suppose. Hello Andrew. I'm on the book page, folks. Hopefully, you're following me on the book page. Fingers crossed. Hopefully not too many of you on the book page are going to come on and join and then bug out like what yous normally do. Hello Daz. David Adams. Wendy. Hello Wendy, we're on the book page tonight. Hello Gillian. Hello Dawn. There shouldn't be any technical issues tonight. I've already done a test. My phone's on silent, as always as it should be. Willie should always be on silent. Hello Sarah. Yes Wendy, you are in the right place. Anybody else on my Facebook that's not come over? Mitchell McLaren, no idea. No idea. There's 2 people still watching on my Facebook. Right, so let me just end this. Right, can I ask, before any more of you disappear, if you can please share the video, if it isn't too much trouble. Come on now, don't be shy. It's not going to be me doing all the talking tonight. You'll be glad to know.
Yo, 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 yo.
Hello.
Hi, mate.
Turn this down.
This is Jack. Before we go any further, obviously we're at the start of the video. For all 14 of you, come on, let's be dropping a share. Sharing's caring. Now, there's 15 of us now. We're getting to fucking dizzy heights right now. So, I know there's the usual people that I'll share. I'm talking about the people that didn't normally. Please share this one. This is the first time that I've had a guest on my book page. Hello, Stu. Please share it, Stu. You know, I've had guests on my Facebook, but I'm wanting to have authors on my Heroin to Hero book page over the coming months. Jack is the first of 3 authors that I've got lined up. You know, and hopefully you enjoy it. Like I said, It's not going to be me talking tonight. It's not going to be all Paul Boggie talking about a story that you have heard before and you're sick of hearing, and that's why you're not right. It's a new story. You'll be pleased to know. So we're going to hear for Jack. Jack's obviously an author. We're going to get some readings for Jack as well. Hear about Jack's story. Yeah, and hopefully you enjoy it. For once, I'm going to be sitting like that for most of the night, trying my best anyway. So hello, Jack.
Oh, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining me, mate. Like, this is just a new thing, obviously, where I've got all these different groups now, and obviously the purpose of this group, with me being an author, is about the books. And I don't do any talks about addiction or anything like that into this group unless it's completely related to the book. But this is, like I said there, I'm wanting to just get as many authors in now and talk about life as an author. Like how we even get to this stage as being authors. Like I said to you earlier, you know, it's not everybody's cup of tea. So I'll be interested. Obviously, I know most of your story anyway because we've done a live video way last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
7 months ago or something.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Probably August, maybe.
Yeah, it must have been about that. Maybe even it could have been about August. Yeah.
Yeah, because I started the Accidental Journalist in October.
Right, so it was just prior to that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a long time ago, isn't it? I mean, we're nearly no be long till about a year past. So it's good to have you back on. Get an update to what you've been up to and stuff. So what I'll do, mate, is I'll shut up now. And I'll let you introduce yourself to the listeners and the viewers and stuff, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Jack Gregory. I'm known as the Accidental Journalist. I've been writing for a few years now. I always wanted to be a writer, but I couldn't read or write. I'll go over that in a little while. And then when I did learn to read and write, it was through fear that I didn't write anything. So when I wrote my first book in 2017 about my addiction and my life and things that had happened to me in my past and my death and sort of rebirth, whatever you want to call it, you know, that happened in it would be 6 years this week that I'd be sort of now coming round and realizing that actually nobody was trying to kill me. But yeah, I'll go back to the start, I suppose. But we're going to be talking a little bit about my book, Personal Apocalypse. Is available on Amazon as an ebook. Unfortunately, we've run out of print, but we are working on a longer edition. There's going to be around about 160 pages more, with more stories, and you know, it's going to be a bit more comprehensible, rather than just, you know, basically poetry and prose. There's going to be a lot more stories. I'm going to add a bit more humour to it as well, because it is a bit sort of dark. You said you wanted me to read something from it.
Yeah, I know.
Last time I read
you done a poem the last time, I think, Jack, and I think it's good for people, obviously, to hear a little bit, and of course, you know, to plug your book as best you can. Giving people a little snippet might just intrigue them enough to go right now or after this live. Wait till after the live to go and buy Jack's book.
So what I thought I might do is I thought I'd read the first chapter. It's about 4.5 pages, where it really explains the mindset that I was in this time 6 years ago, because this time every year I go through my memories on Facebook, and there aren't many. There are only the ones that my now wife, my partner, was putting out at the time, to try and get me to respond, because I was, you know, like I say, I was in a very, very dark place, and I thought that social media had gone down. So I wasn't on it, and I was really in a sort of place where I was scared and as lonely as anybody can be. So this was written, I suppose, about a year after, when I started compiling the book, and it's called The Apocalypse Begins, and it's about how I was in my head when, you know, when I was waking up, I'd collapsed. I wasn't well. I'd been ill for days, weeks, and I had to go to the hospital, and I died. I physically died for 4 minutes, and then came back with brain damage through hypoxia. So yeah, this is from the book, and it's the first chapter. It's called The Apocalypse Begins. I do apologise to those who have heard it, and you know, it might be a bit sad for some people, but yeah. The Apocalypse Begins. I've deliberated for so long about where to start with this book. At the very beginning, at the end, or somewhere in the middle. This is a posing question, even at the time of me writing, as there are the poetic ramblings of a troubled man. Then I shall just attempt to let my mind flow and my fingers do the work. March 15th, 2015. I awoke from my medically induced state. My eyes struggled to adjust to the artificial light of the white-walled ventilation room I found myself incarcerated in. Dry, crusty mucus caused by the oxygen hose blocked my nose. I could only breathe through my open mouth, and that was with extreme concentration. My eyes struggled to adjust to the bright medical lights. There I was in a whitewashed room with walls so bright they reflected what little light came through the window onto my face. My only view through the window was a brick wall. Dazed, confused, and struggling to breathe, I pulled the drip pipe from my cannula and attempted to make my escape. How had I gotten here? Where was I? And what the hell had they done to me? I moved my legs slowly around the side of the bed. I felt so weak, yet was obviously being held prisoner in some sort of medical research facility. I was being tested on, trapped in a total nightmare. As soon as my feet hit the ground, I let go of the side of the bed and I hit the floor face first. What kind of hell was this? Had I woken up in a movie, a zombie-infested scene reminiscent of 28 Days Later or The Walking Dead? I had no strength to pull myself up at all. All I could do was slowly slide towards the door and make my daring escape. In front of me was a hardwood door with a small window, and I could see, and I could not even muster up the strength to look through it. Yet, to my left, a heavy door that was slightly ajar. I had found my means of escape now. All I needed to do was muster up the strength to crawl, and to make my way to freedom. Somehow I managed to push the door open a little more, and grabbing the door frame, I managed to pull myself up onto the bobbled bathroom floor. It took every ounce of breath and strength for me to drag myself up onto my knees so I could roll myself onto the shower chair to sit down and regain my failing, rattling breath as the pain in my chest was so intense. I looked up to the mirror. The clinical white porcelain sink Who was this man looking back at me? Emaciated and white with a yellow tint to his skin, his eyes bulging from his tight skin-covered skull that resembled something quite alien. My lips cracked, dry and blistered, swollen and beyond recognition. My chest blistered, inflamed where the undercover policeman had laid an acid-laden sheet to torture me, to extract information, and it burned so badly. The pain was maddening and soul-destroying, and I deserved nothing less. I heard the door with the window pushed open violently, and the commotion ensued. My heart began beating fast. It felt like I was gonna break through my already fragile and Belson-like chest. It was fight or flight, and I had strength to do neither. Perhaps it was just time to die. I limply fell to the floor and rolled in front of the door in a feeble attempt to barricade myself in. My attempts were, however, futile. The door burst open with ease, rolled me over with force. I looked up and stifled a scream as the masked men, reminiscent of characters from some sort of Contagion movie, leaned over me, glaring at me. I could feel the hate from their eyes burning into my soul. I could not understand the muffled voices as I pathetically tried to put up a feeble fight. I felt a painful jab into my right buttock, and all went black. I didn't know how long I was asleep, unaware of my surroundings. The room felt different, the air heavier, and I must have slept a long while, as my clean shaven face was awry now with matted facial hair. My mouth dry, I could barely breathe, barely swallow, yet I dared not to drink the water, as I feared it was tainted, poisoned with my own blood. A ploy to keep me sick, whilst the drugs kept me partially sedated. I trusted no one, especially the ones I knew. Facebook had gone down days ago, as it flooded with the news of betrayal of this earth. I had poisoned it with my dirty breath. I always thought weapons of mass destruction would end this earth. Turns out it was a northern monkey that poisoned it with a contagion of tuberculosis and God knows what else. I was a test subject, a living incubator for any and all nefarious and insidious diseases that could bring about the end of the world. I was trapped in a state of limbo, the fine line between sleeplessness and exhaustion. Sirens intermittently sound, letting me know 1 more million people had died. Another reason to torture me. Outside, the sun was failing and the world was falling. Outside the very building I was hostage in was home to nothing but rotting corpses, remnants of friends, family and the unlucky, and it was I that caused this. If I could only cry, if I could only show how sorry I really was, then maybe, just maybe, they would stop the torture and let me die instead of this hell. The room next door was awry and cram-packed with people that I once knew, I once loved, and who once loved me, now united in hate and this common goal of watching me suffer. The ones who died were replaced by robots, by clones, or just by clever disguises. They would intermittently visit me to try and fool me, deceive my very soul, and tell me everything was going to be fine. Yet in secret they would hold kangaroo court and agree to let me die if everyone would agree. And the only one who wanted me to live, just to make me better and live out my days destined to be the last human, was my niece Haley. And she kept me alive out of love, not hate. Every torture technique, mental and physical, I took because I knew I deserved it. However, there were some that broke me. Bear in mind, I believe that most of my family had either died of shock or disease. My girlfriend had been brainwashed and fed lies through an earpiece every time she visited, forced to try to get me to take poison, to get me to eat poisoned food tainted with my own deadly blood. I knew their game, so I would eat, and eventually I wouldn't eat, so I would then eventually die of starvation and on my own terms. My daughter had died days before, and I was being forced to video call with her whilst they used her like a puppet to try and fool me. I just wanted to die. Why would they not let me die? Grantley, the lead pastor from the church, had come in to read me my last rites, but he knew that the end of days were here, and I was destined for hellfire, because the angels dare not come, because the demons were ravenous. My friend Paul Julian would visit because his faith in God was strong enough. He just wanted me to repent. But this was not Paul. This was a robot designed to fool me. 2 weeks later, I don't know when things started to get better, to get easier and clearer. The fear, self-loathing, paranoia began to subside. The hallucinations, the voices and hate were gone. The fog on my brain was clearing, and after years of dipping in and out of religion, pretending to be a Christian to excuse my behaviour, I finally accepted Jesus Christ into my life, and from death I was reborn. My life had got better over the past 2 years or so. Not that it had been easy. I have dealt with some real personal trauma and tragedy, but with the help of my church, with the help of my friends and my little family, with Joanna, my partner, and our respective children, I have begun to grow in my faith, strength and love. I am now in a position where I can write about it, share about my life, my experience, my strength, my weakness and my hope, to try and get other people to recover from mental illness and find purpose in life. So comes this book, these ramblings of a troubled man, in attempts to shed some light on the messed up world I created for myself and the events that eventually led me to a very personal apocalypse.
Hold the book up, Jack. I didn't think it was going to be camera, but that's the front cover, folks. Head over to, is it on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon and it's available on ebook at the moment. The second edition should be out within the next few months.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Jack. I appreciate it. It's never easy reading your story, you know, back.
Yeah, it's not as raw as it was, you know. Like I say, it's pretty much 6 years to the time it was when I was going through all that, and you know, my life has changed so much since then. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the start and give my story, and you know, then we can get back to that. So I was born not far from you. I was born in Glasgow, and brought to England when I was 6 months old by my mum, and she was and her sisters and her brother, and they were all reeling from the fact that my grandfather had died in police custody in Glasgow. So that was 1977, late 1977. And by 1980, 81, I'd been taken away and I'd been adopted into a family in just outside Wakefield in West Yorkshire, and I never knew any of this. I always felt a bit different. You know, I had a sister and two parents that I loved a lot, but I always felt a bit different. I was shy, I was timid. I wouldn't speak unless I was spoken to, and I always felt different at school. I couldn't write things down. I couldn't read. You know, I could barely write my name. So I was just put down as a bit of a lazy child. And I suppose like things were kind of all right until my 8th birthday. So that would have been May the 13th, 1985. And we'd had pop and scones and cake, you know, those platters that every northern mother made, you know, and we'd have friends round and it was good. And then that night I was sat on my mum's knee, as I often did, watching the telly. And my dad was sat reading his paper, and my mum said, you know, she said, you know, I love you. I went, I love you too, Mum. And then she said, love you very much, but there's something that we need to tell you. I'm not your real mum. You got a mum somewhere else that couldn't look after you. And that's when it went dark for me. It's when it broke me. Looking back through all the years of therapy, it's when it broke me. It's where my fear of rejection came from, and it broke my brain, and I became someone that I used to be happy. I was happy-go-lucky up until then, I suppose. But then I started to go into myself. I couldn't get on with the kids in the neighbourhood really well. You know, I got bullied and things like that, and I felt different. And there were members of my own family that treated me different. So I guess that I used that as an excuse, really. In 1989, I was sent to a school for maladjusted children that was it was just a special school system. It was massed as a special school. The kids there weren't particularly nice to me. They were all a lot stronger than me. I came from a really sort of good background. You know, my mum and dad owned their house, nice town, nice house. I had everything that I ever wanted. And these kids didn't. They were all from council estates, broken families. But I got bullied. So by the time I was like 14, I was just messed up. You know, I could get drugs readily just like that. You know, one thing I was always good at was cross-country running. The school that I went to, a place called Wentvale in Pontefract, it's basically in the center of, like, a mile from anywhere in any direction. So at dinner time, I could do a run, and I could run knockoff CDs that were just starting to come out. You know, I remember, I think one of the first ones that I ever did was Fat of the Land. Porn, knockoff videos, you know, and a few drugs, and I made a bit of money. I was good at it, and I would drink at school behind the bike sheds. Teachers didn't give a shit. If you were bad, they used to send you off to the army youth team. So by the time I left school, I had, you know, the only qualifications that I left school with was a certificate on riding a 50cc moped, changing a fuse in a plug, and a couple of first aid things that we did at the local power station. But I could teach climbing, caving, canoeing, abseiling. We'd done gully walking. I spent most of the weekends with certain teachers and things like that. That's when I was first abused, and I kept it to myself, and it's only over these past couple of years that I've been able to admit it to myself. and to other people. I went to my first AA meeting at 14. I saw something then, and you know, I've been in and out of the fellowships ever since. I left home at 17, 18, moved into a temporary place out in Wakefield where I was sharing with students. I did nothing but lie. That's one thing I was good at. I could always lie. You know, I could always make a penny, because I could weave a story. You know, and I was working with some of the best con men in the country at the time. You know, at the weekends we were out in Leeds doing long cons, short cons, flips, all sorts. So you know, I moved out of there into a little bed sit in a place called Horsefair in Pontefract. On and off with drugs. That's where I first tried LSD and stuff like that. In and out, leading a double life. I came across as quite weak. I didn't get no trouble, and I was actually, to be honest. But I suppose I realised I was getting a kicking once, and I realised that actually it didn't hurt as much as I thought it did, and that I could actually pretty much take a punch better than anybody. That's one thing I've learned, and then actually when I threw a punch back, I could throw it back quite twice as hard. So that went on and off for years, and I was leading a double life, triple life, out making money, taking drugs. You know, one week I'd be drinking champagne with businessmen. You know, on a long con. The next I'd be down at the whippet track. You know, tried to get sober. Many times I had a friend upstairs. His name was Darren. Loved the man to bits. You know, he tried to get me away from all that, and he took me under his wing. He taught me magic. He taught me, you know, the art of illusion and escapology. He taught me, he started teaching me how to get my thoughts down on paper. He's the one that tried to get me to write down my poetry, because I'd always had that in my head. I was always good with words. I could just never get it down on paper. He would take me, you know, he'd teach me to be a DJ. He'd take me to poetry evenings so I could go and do performance poetry. And then he was involved in an accident. I don't know if you know what a gully sucker is, but it's those things that they sweep the sides of the roads. Well, he used to have to drive it around a country road, pretty much on the top of a hill. We don't know how it happened, but it went down a cliff, and he got thrown from the gully sucker, and it landed on his bottom half and smashed his pelvis, and he survived it. He was a big man. He was 6'4", 20 odd stone. A proper fighter he was. He was even up and walking in hospital a few weeks later, and then he said, tired, went to bed, never woke up. And that's the first time that I lost anybody that I loved. He was the man that had me locked in his bedroom, screaming, watching me go cold turkey, holding me, cuddling me, making me drink water, taking all the abuse. I needed to get away, so I moved to Portsmouth. I got sober in Portsmouth through the Cranston Project. And when I was coming up to 30 days, one of the guys said, you know, one of the people that worked there went, "What do you like?" And I said that I liked films and stuff like that. And I said, "Oh well, you know, I've got a friend that's working as a runner on a film out, the filming in Berkshire this week. If you want to I mean, if you want to go out there, get to 30 days sober and I'll take you out. And that was Snatch. And it was the infamous Whippet scene. And I got to talk to some people, and it was nice. And then I got on the Princess Trust, and I did 3 months on that, and I got a job working as a comedy club magician, as a sound techie. Things were going great, and then I met a woman that lived in Norwich, and then I moved over here, and things. Yeah, I was clean and sober for 12 years, and then my marriage ended. And I'm not going to say it's no fault of my own, because it is. You know, I take full responsibility of the things that I did. And I ended up in and out of different places, sleeping on people's sofas, and you know, then I ended up homeless, and I would use women for what I could get, and that saddens me now. It really does. And I'm really, I didn't treat people as well as I should, and a lot of people got hurt. Anyway, I ended up back on the gear, having a full-on mental fucking breakdown, just going absolutely nuts. All I wanted was somebody to acknowledge how I was feeling. You know, I lost an aunt, I'd lost an uncle, you know, I'd lost a friend. I'd seen somebody killed on their moped, and it sent me wild, mate. To be honest, it sent me mad. You know, once I got in that sort of mind frame of a toxic masculinity. You know, I've had a few fights in my time. I've had a few for money. You know, I've spent a bit of time down in basements, and you know, I've got myself in trouble. And you know, one thing I missed out, I ended up doing a bit of time for getting caught stamping on somebody's head. Before I moved to Portsmouth, and that's one thing that I sort of regretted, because when I lost my temper, it was everything that ever got on my, you know, everything that ever hurt me, I put into my rage. So there I am. I'm homeless. I'm sat in a crack house, totally off my nut, on God knows what, drunk God knows what. I tried to get into the film industry. I'd written a pretty good script. You know, some people had taken it on, and then saw that I was going into this mad rage, and I ended up signing it away for 4 years and losing it. But I sat and I just cried, and I said, God, I can't do this no more. I can't live like this no more. I don't even know if you exist, God, but if you do, if you are real, please take away this hurt. Please take away this hunger for drugs. Please take away this thirst for drugs. Please just stifle my addiction and just take it away. This must have been the 26th of June 2014. I'd been going to a food bank as well, which is quite relevant, and I fell asleep. It must have been about 10, 11 o'clock at night. I fell asleep, and then I woke up after 12 o'clock. No desire to use. I haven't used since. 7 years. On the 27th of June. But still, I didn't have the drugs, I didn't have the drink, but I still had that mentality. I was at the food bank, and there was this very kind woman that mentioned that she liked my t-shirt. I was wearing a Doctor Who t-shirt, and she bought me some tobacco, and she took me for, despite being told not to, she took me for a sandwich and something to eat, and she showed me some real compassion. She's my wife now. You know, it's been a long road. It's been a long road to recovery, especially mentally. You know, and I was kind of living with in a spare room, and I was just, the guy was insane. He was doing drugs left, right, and centre, and I couldn't do it no more. I couldn't. Ended up moving in with Jo, my wife now, and it was all right. And then the February of 2015, I started to get quite ill. Ended up in hospital with stomach problems, gallbladder problems, which I've still got. You know, and then by the end of March, April, that's when I ended up in hospital with tuberculosis, pleurisy, double pneumonia, some disease that they hadn't seen in about 70 years. You know, the drugs that they gave me were, you could say, hallucinogenic, but not just visually, but auditory, which is why one of the reasons that I had my breakdown. One of the drugs that they gave me had a really bad adverse reaction, and came out in a sort of really bad blisters on my chest, which is why I thought that put a towel covered with acid on my chest, and that's what started everything off. That's what started me going into that thing. Full of fear, full of regret, full of anger, full of self-hatred, self-loathing. I wanted to die. I tried several times before and couldn't fucking pull it off. And the reason I wanted to die is because I couldn't, not for me, but I couldn't bear putting the people that I loved through what they were going through. I couldn't bear seeing my daughter watch me deteriorate. I couldn't bear seeing the people that I loved, the family that I built. I didn't want them to watch me suffer, so I pushed everyone away and decided I wasn't going to eat. So there I was, 6 stone 6 ounces, laying in a hospital bed. I'd lost 50% of my muscle mass. I had to learn to walk again. I couldn't eat if I wanted to. The only thing that I could gulp down was jelly. I really wanted to eat, but my mouth was full of blisters because of, my teeth were falling out. I remember Joe bringing me I think it was a KFC. No, it wasn't a KFC. It was some southern fried chicken place. Just trying to get me to eat. And I wanted to eat it. You could see I wanted to eat it, but I was still racked with fear, you know, and I couldn't have eaten it if I wanted to. And then the doctor said that they saw me deteriorate so fast that they've never seen anybody just have an adverse reaction like that, and I went mute. I couldn't physically speak. I wouldn't physically speak. I was so scared. I was racked with so much fear. All I could do was lie on that bed and just do nothing. I couldn't cry. I wanted to cry. I thought if I could cry, that might show that actually I regret some of the things that I've done in my past. I regret. And it just got worse. And I fell into my own mind. And it was dark for a long time. And then, like I said, I don't know when, but it started to get a bit better. In my head, I heard them say, stood out the door. See, every night I would hear them in my head hold this kangaroo court, and they would bang on a desk with a, you know, some sort of gavel or a cup or whatever. I don't know what it was. This was in, you know, obviously in my head. And the sirens that were going off, I now know that they were like life support machines in other rooms. But all I could hear was, it was like an air raid siren, so it was like, you know, it seemed like every hour. So I thought that's 1 more million dead. The room must have been quite near the helipad. The famous hospital, we've got a helipad. You know, we've got quite a few helipads where we are. So I'd hear that go off, and then I'd hear the helicopters come in. And that to me was them flying in the people that I'd hurt, just so they could come and watch me from the room next door with CCTV and mock me. You know, and it's only now, these years later, that I'm even seeing, you know, able to make sense of some of this stuff that I couldn't even make when I wrote the first book. Which is probably another reason why that I'm, you know, doing a bigger, uncut, unabridged book. You know, everybody that I'd ever lost sat on my heart, you know. And I watched my best friend throw himself in front of a train because he couldn't handle the world. He couldn't handle his own mental health. He thought being gay was all up here. Couldn't tell his mum and dad, so he threw himself in front of a fucking train. So yeah, I started to get better. I met Jesus at the end of my bed, and people might say, "Oh well, you know, Jack, that's a bit. That's just a touch of the psychosis." But I could not stop by my own will, no matter how much I tried. I could not change for wanting to change. I had to surrender my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. And there's been some dark times in recovery, and it's been fucking hard. It's been really fucking hard. I do apologise if my swearing offends anybody. You know, I found my real mum. Lost her to cancer. That broke me. I didn't use.
Good for you.
My 2-day-old niece was beaten by her father. Something clicked in his head. She died. He was sent down 10 years, got into Spice, was murdered by his cellmate. So my family got no closure. And I hated him. And I went to the funeral, and it took nearly a year to get the funeral. One of the elders from my church took me, you know, paid for a hotel room and everything, and then, you know, because he knew that I couldn't go through it alone. And his mum come up to me and she hugged me. That broke me. But I didn't use. Because the whole thing about turning your will and your life over to the care of God, to surrender, to truly surrender. You know about this being a soldier, sometimes you have to surrender to win. You know, when the threat to the loss of life is so much that you're going to lose so much, you have to surrender to win. And that's what I did. Surrendered my will and life over to the care of God as I understood him. And I forgave him. Don't mean I have to like him. Because unforgiveness is poison. Holding unforgiveness in your heart is so poisonous, it's like drinking a poison and expecting the other person to die. Who was me hating him? Who is it affecting? Is it affecting him or is it affecting me? Certainly affecting him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he never gave me two thoughts. So I said, God, I can't do this anymore. I cannot forgive this man. In fact, there's so many people in my life that I cannot forgive. I cannot forgive these people. But you can. That's the biggest bit of wisdom I've ever got from one of my heroes. One of my heroes is a woman called Corrie ten Boom. Now, Corrie ten Boom was a prisoner of war as a child. She hid young girls away from Nazi SS officers to stop them from being raped. Her sister was raped. You know, she spent all this time in a camp, and you know, she hid these young girls away from it, even when it was like danger to herself. And one day she's sharing a story in front of all these people 30 years later or whatever, and this man walks up to her and he said she recognised him as one of the most evil SS guards that she'd ever met, one of the most evil men she'd ever met. And he said, I was one of these guards. I tortured people. I did things that I'm not proud of. I found God, can you forgive me? And she thought, no, I can't forgive you, but God can. And she gave him a hug. So that's what I did. The people that hurt me, the people that abused me, the people that brought me hate, the people that made me live in fear, the people that had done me wrong, the people that had done family wrong, it was poisoning me so badly that I was getting to the point where I wanted to die again, because I couldn't handle it. And I tried several times, you know. The last time I put a gun to my throat, pulled the trigger and it jammed. Cleaned it, put it to my throat again, and it had jammed. Went to do it the next time and somebody knocked the door. Now tell me God doesn't exist. It was then, and only then, when I started looking at forgiveness, and specifically unforgiveness, and looking back at the steps of the programs that I'd been going in and out for years, and then I'd have so long sobriety, and then I'd end up, something would happen, and somebody would piss me off and I'd end up using again. But this time it was different. I wasn't, and I was working the program, and I was looking at the how. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. I got honest with myself. I got honest with the people around me. I opened my mind, I opened my heart, and I opened my soul to the concept of a God that I understand. And that wasn't easy, because I believed that God existed. Well, not even believed, I knew that God existed. But could I forgive him for what he put me through? And I got honest with myself, I got honest with other people, I got honest with God. I became open-minded. I started looking at ways to stay clean, to help, not just to help myself stay clean, but to help others stay clean. And I got a willingness to learn, but not just to learn, to educate. Because I believe if you've lived a certain way of life, and you've done certain things, even if you can't teach. So I started educating myself, and I started wanting to educate other people. And the biggest fear that I had was facing my past, facing my demons, and writing them down. Looking at my mental illness, what I call my dragon, and yeah, I started to write, and that's when the first book sort of, I did it quite quickly. There were a few mistakes in it that never got picked up. I think that's one of the other reasons why I want to do another version, because I've learned so much. And then in 2016, I started talking to people that had gone through sexual abuse and stuff like that, human trafficking. One of my good friends had been trafficked as a child by her father. And I wanted to write a book. So I did. Started talking to these people. And that's when I started realising what I'd been through. That's when it unlocks these things, that actually what these people did to me when I was younger, these who should have been appropriate adults, how they treated me, how they touched me, how they talked to me, that was wrong. What they did to me, that was wrong. And every bit of toxic masculinity started to ooze away. And I cried. One thing that brain damage left me with was I can't always read people's faces. I can't read in text intent, which is why it really drives me mad. I can write it from memory very well, but I can't translate that, but yeah, it all resonated with me. So, you know, I wrote that book. And then I had some mental health issues on and off. And I came across Kelly Massey and her family. Somebody had written a book about her dad. And Paul was this supposed gangster. And it took me maybe 10-15 minutes on the internet to find out that actually not everything is black and white. And he was murdered by a hitman. So united by this, losing somebody violently, we started to write the Paul Massey book. And then, you know, mental health ensued in between. I think for both of us, really, we had some time off, and then, you know, anyway, Steve Rafe got involved and he helped finish it off. And, you know, I started learning things, and I started talking to people, I started networking, I started getting involved with people who had all either been involved with crime or been perpetrators or victims. Yeah, then I met you, started talking to you, and our stories kind of resonated. You know, I was never that hero. You know, I couldn't have served the country, but what I realized what I could do was a life of service actually is a good life. And what I can actually do is not just serve God, but I can serve my community. And part of my community is people online that have addictions, that have mental health issues, that have problems. There are so many podcasts out there that are based around true crime. And yeah, I do touch upon true crime. And they're brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. But people weren't tackling the things that I needed people to know about. I needed people to know that no matter what they were going through, no matter what drug they were taking, no matter what mental health problem they were having, no matter how many times they thought of suicide, no matter who the people they were around, no matter what toxic things were in their life, that they were loved and that they deserved to be loved, and that they are not the sum of their mistakes, and they are not the sum of the people that they hung around. You know, all they needed maybe was a bit of wisdom. You only get to keep what you have by giving it away, and that's all I can do. So after talking to you, you know, we did it like this. You know, it must have been more August. Was it August last year? And you know, I opened up and I shared some things pretty much like this, not too much different to this. Some things I've gone into that I didn't go into then, but you know, I was sat in my house and not in the shed, you know, but and I started to think, well, I want to do something, but I can't for the life of me write it down at the minute because my brain wouldn't work. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I didn't really have a lot of confidence in speaking, didn't have a lot of confidence in myself, so I thought I need to step over fear. So I spoke to Jason Edwards, a good friend of mine who's a top hostage and barricade negotiator. I've had him on the show twice now, and he agreed to be my first interview, and that's where The Accidental Journalist was born. I suppose that was around September, October last year, and since then I've had some absolutely phenomenal people on. You know, Willie last night, his story astounded me. You know, people like Willie. I swore that I would, if people didn't have a voice, I would give them the platform for them to be heard. If they didn't have the ability to get their voice across, I would help them get their voice across. That's why I've had so many sort of unknown people on, just sharing the stories of experience, strength and hope, along with some people like Peter Blexley, Dominic Nagus, you know, Jeff Holland from High to High, which was absolutely fantastic. You know, Michael Fenton Stevens, Jasvinder Singera, you know, some of the bigger names that I've had on. But it's all because I wanted to give a voice, because when I was growing up, I didn't feel that I had a voice, and people wouldn't listen to me, and people wouldn't. When I was having my breakdown, people wouldn't listen to me. They told me to man up. They didn't just tell me to man up, they told me to stop living in my own fucking drama. And that wasn't helpful. You can never tell anybody that. So, you know, I started getting educated, I started getting wise. And that's what I do now. I educate myself, and I try to educate other people. And if my story can affect one person at a time, that's why I do it. And I guess that's where I am sat here today.
And that makes you a hero in your own right. Everybody is in their own right, that are battling recovery every day, have lived a traumatic life, and at the end, right now, as we sit in this minute, in this day, are doing the things like you're doing, that you just said, they are giving people a platform. But not only that, your willingness to open up your own story, your own life, you know, as traumatic as it was, your willingness to do that, you'll never know really how many people you touch with your story. That's the thing. You know, you hear the words coming out your mouth and you say it to the camera, looking at my face, but people will be listening to your story, that maybe aren't quite so brave, that had similar experiences happen to them, similar that happened to you, you know, and maybe they've not got the strength to maybe talk and be open about it. But the fact that they see you sitting there saying that you've got those traumatic things happen to you and you never used, so many times you could have used and you never, you know, that in itself is inspirational, to give people that strength, because they'll be looking at you thinking, right, wait a minute, I was on Paul's page with Jack that night, and similar thing happened to Jack as what happened to me, and he come out all right, you know. So it's giving people hope. So in my fucking eyes, you're a hero, Jack, you know. And other people like you that are brutally honest about sharing their traumatic lives, because it isn't for everyone. Most people would hide away and be embarrassed and ashamed and stuff to tell their story, and guess what happens? They end up fucking depressed. They end up fucking suicidal, because, you know, keeping stuff like that to yourself, it doesn't help our mental health by bottling it up and only talking to ourselves in our own heads about the problems. I think when you open up, like, I'm sure when the messages that have come in tonight are all massively supportive of you, I'm sure even on your own page, the people that you meet in life every day now, even on social media, I'm sure they're all massively supportive of you and find you an inspiration as well. You know, and that ability to do that, I don't know about you, but for me, it helps my mental health. Like, somebody asked me last week, I've got like a life coach at the moment, right? And she says, who looks after you? Like, you're spending all your time helping all these other people, and it's amazing what you're doing, but who looks after Paul Boggie? Like, who looks after Paul Boggie's mental health and stuff? You know, and then when I think about it, and I was like, do you know what the answer to that is? Is that by me helping these people, I'm helping myself. The more I find myself helping people, the better I feel within myself. Going to the prison yesterday, shiting myself walking in. Driving home from the prison, I was on fucking cloud 9 driving over the bridge coming home because I felt so proud of myself for trying to help them, you know. And in turn, I was maybe going to help them, maybe help plant a seed with their drug addiction problems, which is helping them. But then for me personally, in my life, it was good. So, and that's why I'm doing this whole fucking social media thing. Like, it's mental, you know, social media is a fucking mental thing. But talking, like you were saying, like about being nervous about talking to the camera and stuff, and I was like that at the start. It gets easier over time. Like, you know, the more you talk, the more you get used to seeing your face in the camera, hearing your voice and things. That's quite an off-putting thing. It was for me. Really hated the sound of my voice.
That's what I do, to be honest.
Yeah, and
but you get used to it.
Yeah, and my face. Seeing my face on the camera when I was watching Facebook videos, watching them back and stuff, it's like, fucking hell, man. You're like Spuddy to Trainspotting, you know? And it's just like, you're just that super critical. Yeah, but thanks very much for coming on, Jack. I'm certain it'll not be the last time that you come on. Like I said earlier, you know, this is the start of something new on this page, and it's been a pleasure to have you as my first guest.
Thank you.
And I'm sure everybody has enjoyed it. Certainly all the comments that have came in and stuff have been super supportive of you, as am I. And I'm sure even those that are a bit shy still support you, you know, definitely 100%. And I'm sure the guests that you're going to get on in the future, you're just going to go from strength to strength in what you're doing, you know. And like we both know, recovery is a battle every day for the rest of our lives, mate. But at the end of the day, it's not worth it for, you know, to sit here as proud authors. How fucking amazing is that? Like, you know, it's like, it's just mental. It's just fucking mental. You would be the same if you were going back 20 years ago and thinking at some point in your life you were going to be an author. You'd be like, shut the fuck up, right? You wouldn't believe it. And I would be the exact same. There's no fucking chance I could write a fucking book. Like, there's no even like, we're not even getting close to that. Writing a book. And look at us now, sitting here, proud authors. You know, talking about your book. You're reading for your book, which I massively enjoyed. It was nice for me to sit and listen for once. I think it's the longest Facebook live video I've ever done without fucking talking. You know, like, it was good to listen to your story, and then even as you were telling your story, I had questions that I wanted to ask you. I was like, shut up, didn't fucking interrupt. More photos, fucking again. You know, and it was like the question, like, the thing that got me at your story, there's a couple of questions that I've got for you. Well,
yeah, please do.
An observation and a question. Observation was, like, you says it yourself that when you were sitting on your mum's knee when you were younger, and then you found out that she wasn't your real mum, and it was quite an instant. You said it went black. It was like in your mind, like it was quite an instant thing. Do you think it was from that point? Because obviously we both do talk about drug addiction and where drug addiction stems from. Where does it come from? It has to come from somewhere, and to tackle it, to be able to tackle it, we have to understand where the root is. And, you know, many people talk, and many people have different opinions and stuff, and everybody's entitled to them. But it's my belief that things that happen when we are kids determine the mindset that we're going to have as adults. And
Yeah.
then when you throw drugs into the mix, you know, you create this fucking cocktail that's going to explode at some point.
Mm.
And then when you say that, I know you had other traumatic things happen to you in life, Jack. You know, but being at an AA meeting when you're 14, I mean, fucking hell. Like, you know.
Abuse came there as well, you know, from people trying to 13-step me. You know, and you know, the truth is that, you know, my first meeting, I was taken by one of the teachers from the school that sort of fiddled me, so you know, tried to pass me around, but that's for another day, really. But I guess that being told I was adopted was my first major trauma, and I did not know how to handle it. And yes, it did go dark. And I look at it now, and I know what adoption means. I know that you know, you look at you look at biblical adoption. You know, when a Roman emperor would adopt a child, that child would then be above actually their firstborn child, because they were adopted, they were chosen, they would get everything, and the firstborn child, what they were entitled to, would get nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, the adoption does mean love. You know, in BSL sign language, the sign for adoption is adoption. You know, it's taking something and loving it, despite them not feeling loved. I understand that, and I love my parents very, very much. But I could not face it for years, because I can't say I felt betrayed, but I felt unloved. And no, people could tell me, oh, we love you, but if everything that you have then falls by the wayside because of that, that's when it starts. I believe I was predisposed to be allergic to certain chemicals, let's say. You know, yeah. My brain is predisposed to thinking in a certain way. I suffer from lack of confidence at times. I suffer from poor mental health, and I haven't treated my body and my mind that well in the past, so all these things come to catch up.
Yeah,
you know, so yeah, I mean, that is when it went dark, and I used that to fuel behaviours. You can't blame me, I'm adopted.
Yeah,
at least you're not fucking adopted, you know. At least you're loved, you know. I'm only loved because I feel sorry for me, you know. Yeah. I'm only loved because, you know, and you just get into that vicious cycle, and then you can't get out of it by your own steam. And for years I had that black dog barking in my face, you know, when I let my addiction, my dragon, rule my life, because of that one trauma, which then caused trauma upon trauma upon trauma upon trauma. I didn't trust people, you know. So it's not just how we deal with the victories in life. I've had some really good victories over the past few years, but it's how we deal with the defeats as well. Because sometimes victory is the same as defeat, is given into those same compulsive competitive urges.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have to look at that. Am I a righteous man? That's for God to know. Am I a good man, which is what I always wanted to be? That's for other people to, you know, tell me. You know, I'm.
Well, I think yeah.
It's mind over matter, isn't it?
I'm sure that everybody that you speak to certainly in recent times anyway, Jack, like, I'm pretty sure they would all say that you are, and you know, it wouldn't be a case that they're just saying that to you.
No.
You've turned a corner in life, and it's clear to see, and it's clear by the way that you talk and stuff, that you've got remorse for things that you've done. And I think now the question that I wanted to ask you, that I wasn't wanting to interrupt you. Die in for 4 fucking seconds, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there anything that you can remember happening in that 4 seconds, or is it just blank and you were just told, Jack, you died for 4 seconds, and then we managed to bring you back, you know, and that's the only memory.
Yeah, it was 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Fuck.
Yeah.
4 fucking minutes.
4 minutes.
I'm not going to count that out because we'll fucking be here all night. But fucking hell, man, 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Well, just under 4 minutes. About 3 minutes, 48, 49, something like that. This is one of the reasons why I believe God exists, and not for the reason that people might think. Because of the way that I went into that, I saw nothing. I remember nothing but darkness. But when I came out, that darkness got all so much worse. And that was, you know, my wife would tell you that that was the worst weeks of her life, of anybody's life, watching me go through that, you know. Because when I came out, I needed to be undone.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to be undone. And I know people will say, how can God be that cruel? But I needed to be undone. There was no way on earth that this thick head would put those things together. That there was no way that this head would allow me to find the closure that I needed without that proverbial slap in the face. Was it harsh? Yes, it was. Was it the hardest time of my life? Yeah, it was. You know, there are other things that are up there with it, but yeah, it was. The person that died needed to die. Bare no bones about it. The person that I was needed to die, and the reason that that person needed to die was so that this person could be born, because I was reborn, a new creation in God. But to my, you know, to my family, to myself, and there are still people out there that don't believe that I can change. And do you know what? Like I say, it's mind over matter.
Fuck them.
If I don't mind, they don't matter. Fuck them.
I'm the same, mate.
I used to. People don't like, you know, if people don't like me, that would send me into just this downward spiral. I could not bear people not liking me. The fact that I'd fucking tried to smash the face in several times, or the fact that I broke their cousin's kneecap with a baseball bat, or the fact that I, you know, did this, that, or the other, the fact that I told them nothing but lies, that didn't factor into this thick old brain. I am not that person. I am not the sum of my mistakes. I am not the sum of my sin. I'm a whole new creation. When the old me died, the new me came. And yeah, there are still some remnants of that old me. There are still some times when I think, oh, you know. There are still times when I lose my temper. There are still times when I, you know, when I make mistakes, when I talk to people wrong, when I don't treat people with the respect that they deserve, when I don't treat myself with the respect that I deserve.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big thing. You can't love other people unless you love yourself. And I've learned to like myself, not necessarily love, but I've learned to like myself.
It's not
I
easy.
like my life.
It's true though. It's definitely true. Like, I'm the same, mate. Like, I fucking hated myself my whole fucking life, right? And see now, I just think I've got nothing but fucking admiration for myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's a strange, crazy feeling in my head to have that feeling even up there now. Because I think, wait a minute, you're nearly 42 and you spent most of your life hating yourself and thinking about when you're going to die or, you know, preparing to die. And it's just like, what a fucking waste, you know, to think like that. But I kind of focus on those things and those thoughts because that's a negative thing that'll cause me to be depressed. So I just choose on now and what we're doing now and what we're doing now. The journeys that we're on is fucking amazing. And fucking says otherwise. You know, these fucking wankers out there, mate. They're going to try and bring us down. They're going to fucking critique us. They're going to call us this, call us that. Fucking wankers. Get on with it, right? You know, the fact is now that they didn't have an influence over you and me, and there was a time when these haters and trolls and stuff, when even as short back as a year ago, I remember being on Facebook and I remember soldiers coming on and fucking giving me a hard time. Fucking strangers, mate. And I remember getting depressed and upset and having a sleepless night, thinking, why are they hating on me? Why are they saying the horrible things to me? I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to cope with it now. And it took me this last year, you know, being on this journey, to realise, like, these people are so fucking irrelevant in my life that it doesn't even bear mentioning their names, like, you know. And now I pity them. I find some of them quite amusing, but I do pity most of them because I think there's a deep hurt in those people who are lashing out at me. I think there's a deep hurt deep down inside that these people are hurting. So I do feel sorry for them a little bit. Not too much, of course, but I do pity them a little bit. And it's like, you know, try your hardest now. Like now it's like an unbreakable fortress, like in my mind, you know. And you'll have the same. It's just fuck them, eh? Bring it on.
We could let it get to us. I mean, I had it recently. You know, I put a picture of how I used to be, how I looked when I was in hospital with the thing on my nose, and how I pretty much look now. And I put it on a recovery group, and someone went, "You still look sick." You know, there are always people that will try and pull you down. They will always try and drag you into their negative. And that's all it is, them trying to drag you into their negative to get you down to their level. Bring them up to your level, never let them drag you down to their level.
It's jealousy, mate.
It is.
It's just nothing but jealousy for a lot of people where, you know, they just can't stomach seeing people being successful. It makes them feel powerful by saying something negative in the hope that their negative comment will be so powerful that that person will stumble and fall, and then they can take the credit for causing that and thinking, I remember he was on his way somewhere and I said fucking that he still looked ill and I really fucking hurt him and he went backwards, and that was me. I'm fucking all powerful, you know, and that's what these people think. Sorry, Jack.
That's all right, mate.
I am going to have to go. That's just coming up for 9 o'clock. So
yeah.
I was an hour and a half and I didn't speak too much, I'll
That's...
give you the last minute to plug your book, and then I'll cut it.
Yeah, what I'd like to do actually is, I know I've read it before, but I'd like to read a poem.
Yeah.
That explains what it's like when you're coming down from this mental, just so people can connect with our stories, and it kind of explains what it's like when you start seeing that reality and you start just getting back to part. And it took my daughter, who wasn't very old at the time, to bring me back down. And we were sat in the park, and I'd come. I was, you know, I was getting better from a particularly bad breakdown. I'd tried to punch my ex-wife's door off, you know, but you know, I started to get better, and it's called Playground Battleground. And it was, I had her one Saturday and we were in the playground, and this is where it came. And then I'll let you go, mate. All right, I promise.
Yeah, take your time, Jack.
Playground Battleground. The sun shining, burning brightly on this gentle July afternoon. Heat kisses the back of my neck, yet slow. Soft summer breeze cools the skin on my aging face. And it feels nice. So nice. So there I sit silently, my gaze fixed upon her beauty, as she dances to the playful tune of childhood, skipping and laughing. She, away on her travels, her imagination working overtime, having an adventure in her own personal wonderland. So I wear a look of pride and love upon my face, a look every doting father will wear. Playground now full. Other children joyfully playing to their own childhood songs as their parents look upon them with a similar gaze to my own. So I smile. Yet, as she plays alone, and sadness begins to haze my view. Yet she smiles. I wonder why. Her playful spirit now interrupts as she is taken away from her wonderland in one fleeting moment as she rushes to the aid of an injured child. To her, in her mind, is an injured comrade fallen in the battle of the playground war. His knees grazed, shaking, crying, and filled with fear. And she, ever caring, her instinct overtakes and she looks upon her fallen friend with the same loving stare I have seen so many times before. The same loving look she gave her father on all too many times before. It's empathy personified. Her words wise, reassuring and calming. And healing comes as it always does as she smiles. His crying now a gentle sob as his fear begins to subside. And she is oh so old for someone so young. As she gazes lovingly at his tear-stained and dirty face, her smile turns to his grin as she softly says, "Want to play?" So she takes him by the hand, friends now for the lifetime of her stay in the playground battleground, knowing in reality that she may never see him again, and when her daddy takes her home, yet she smiles. And I still wonder why. So there I sit silently, peacefully for the first time in a long time, filled with pride, and once again I feel nice, and it's so nice to feel nice. Cheers for giving me the platform, mate, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Jack. Really enjoyed it, mate.
Take care, mate.
Hey, everyone.
Good night.